In this lesson, I'm going to continue working on our user interface animation and design. This is what we had the previous lesson. A way to make this look a lot more interesting would be if we, instead of having linear animation, had some curves to our animation. So we can click on the mask expansion, and go to the graph editor. We can see we have this boring linear animation. Well, what we can do is if we select these keyframes, we can go right click, keyframe assistant, which is off the screen, and easy ease. And the hotkey shortcut for that is F9. And we'll see that we have this subtle easing animation applied to our graph here. And if we preview that, we'll see it looks a bit weird. And that's because whilst we've applied it to this layer, we haven't applied it to the second expansion. And that's why it has this sort of odd looking appearance. But I would actually like to make this more extreme. And After Effects doesn't supply many presets, but there's this amazing script called Wizz, which you can download from aescripts.com. And this has a lot of different presets for keyframes. So I'm going to select both these expansions and add in the exponential effect, which is the most extreme. Sine is the least extreme, and they're all ordered very nicely for you. And if we hit apply to that, let's see how that looks. Well, that looks a lot more interesting. I like that a lot. And if we click on the first mask expansion, it still looks like it's very gentle, but we can actually update that with using the show post expression graph. And we can see that this is much more extreme than the frankly boring version, easy ease, that After Effects gives us. So this looks way cooler, and it allows us a very easy way to copy the exact animation between multiple parameters just by selecting it and then hitting apply. Now that we have our first bit of animation, what we ought to do is decide how much motion blur we want. There's a bit of a trend these days to have as little motion blur as possible. We want a small amount, but you'll notice that if we turn on our motion blur, it can kind of muddy up the sort of look. I don't really like how soft things are getting. So what we can do is hit Control K and actually maybe change the shutter angle to maybe 90 or even less. And a value of 90 as opposed to 180 will halve the amount of motion blur. I think that's about an appropriate amount. We could go to 45 degrees, although I think this is pretty good for what we're doing. So we've done the first circle. Now what I'd like to do is just to make the design look a bit more fancy would be, we'll just call this the outer ring. It'd be nice to have a second ring, one that was a bit thinner. So let's duplicate the outer ring, call this one the inner ring, hit U, and this gets to -20. Let's just scale this down. Let's go maybe 80%, or we want this to be quite close. And let's hit U, I think it's -18, maybe -10. Let's go -8. So we can see that we have two rings here. And I might want to offset this a little bit because we don't really see the second ring until the very end. I'd rather see it. We can do that by bringing the first keyframes in. Maybe having them end a little afterwards. Now, if they end a little afterwards, that's actually going to go past the 30 frame mark. So what we can do is actually have the first one end quicker. And what that will do is just allow us to see the second circle the whole time. That looks very good. Okay, so now that that's done, let's import the Windows logo, and I'll just show you where I found most of my logos was just on DeviantArt, typing in Metro icon. There's all these great icon packs that I don't have permission to redistribute. So just go on here and download the ones you like. It takes a little bit of hunting to find all the icons that you want, but there are heaps on here, and most of them actually have a lot in one pack. For instance, this one is 725. So thanks to all the artists on DeviantArt for creating those. I'll just import them into clips, images, and import. I've imported mine as Metro icons. I'm just going to import this folder. And in here I have lots of different icons. And under Windows, I have the Windows logo. This is the Windows 8 logo, which is in the Metro theme, which is what I like. And we need to do a little bit of manipulation to this image because it doesn't really look how we want it. I'm just going to scale it down to 30%, and then let's go to the effects and presets and type in tint to remove the color. Let's type in levels, and actually let's invert it first because we want white on black. Okay, so that's looking alright, but we can see from the histogram that we don't have pitch white, and to get pitch white we just drag the input white to a value until we have the actual data, and you'll see that we have almost pitch white. And we can actually clip to output black and white and actually go a little bit further and get an exact value of 1. Actually, we're not getting an exact value of 1 yet. Let's drag that in. We'd have to drag it all the way here. And now we're getting an exact value of 1. Okay, so that's good. Now what we might want to do is add in a little bit of text. So let's add in the text, and that brings up the character panel. I want the text to be white, and I want Segoe UI, which is actually the font that Windows uses. Just delete that and create a new one. And let's just type in some text. Say this is a Windows 8. People won't really be able to see this, so I just want some information to make it look technical. And we can hit Control Home to center this, and if we, under the paragraph window, center this out, that will center it correctly for us. And actually what I want to do is create a ellipse tool here. What we could do is actually just copy the mask, one of these masks here, paste it on it, and just make sure there's no animation, and remove this expression, change the expansion to 0, set this to none, and what we can do is under the text we can, under path options, choose this mask here being our path. Now we have quite a few options in the path, and I would like to reverse the path. Now it's down here. I want to make it smaller, so we can double click on one of these points and hold down Control Shift, and that will scale it in a little bit. And what we want to do is change the margin. So we want this to be the text up the top. There we go, we can see that lines up. So we have the Windows 8 Pro, and what we can do is duplicate this and come back to the margin, set that back to 0, and maybe let's choose reverse path off, and we'll need to again scale this one down because it's sort of being overlapping, but now we can see that it's not overlapping anymore. Maybe scale in just a little bit. And I want to have this as the computer name. So Windows names the computers like this, James-PC, or whatever your name is, -PC. And it's official. This is my computer. And it's got Windows 8 Pro, and that's looking good. Now we just need to animate these elements on. I think it would be nice for these to sort of animate this in a similar way. We can see that our animation starts in the very center and expands out. So with the Windows logo, just go scale, and we had 30 keyframe animation. Set it here, set it to 0, select the scale property, come over to using Wizz, set that to expo in out, turn motion blur onto all of these, and all of these we will also scale. So set the scale here and 0, ease and wisdom. Now what we can do is have them come one after the other, so maybe leave 2 frames here so that we can see the initial circle animation and then all the text. So it goes 1, 2, 3, one after the other. They all finish at the same time. Let's change that so that this one finishes first, second, and third. And let's examine our animation. Okay, that's looking good. At the start though, I don't really like how this sort of takes up most of that. I would like this animation to start a bit later so that we just have a break. Maybe a little less than that, maybe 1 frame less. So in the next lesson, what we'll do is create all the little icons that pop up around the main console.